Hi, good morning. This is the Gardener community meeting. Today we have two topics. Georgi will give an update on community, and then Kristian will talk about Loki, the new logging stack, and what is next in logging. Georgi, you can start, please.
Thanks, Matthias. Let me figure the right screen for sharing. Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so that's the first edition of hopefully recurring series of monthly updates on what's happened in the community and how are we looking there. I'll very much, this one probably is going to be a little bit more elaborate than the next one, but in order to, that these things are helpful, I would appreciate your feedback so we can tune accordingly to make it really helpful. Anyway, let's go further and jump in. First of all, what's happened lately? I mean, in May, that's the recap for May. One of the most notable things was that we managed to take out this success story for PingCap and Gardener together. That probably you remember on one of our community meetings was presented by our community members from PingCap. So we created together a blog post that we issued on the website, and we have run a promotion campaign on Twitter and also on LinkedIn. And as far as I heard, there's going to be also a promotion on SAP devs community as well early next week. So it's continuing to harvest success. Some recent news from the last month. Well, Gardener 1.4 was released, as we all know, and probably one big news was that SAP announced a fully managed Kubernetes runtime powered by Kima and Gardener. Now, the news was mostly for Kima because that's the so-called Kima runtime. But wherever you browse the public box there on the SAP community, for example, you will always note that there is a paragraph about Gardener as well. And this is something that we also promoted around via our Twitter account. Some new guides appeared. For example, get a share to a Gardener shoot worker node. That's a complete guide for all the methods to get a share to a Gardener shoot worker node, both for successfully joined and failed nodes to join the cluster. It's getting quite of an attention. It's basically a very good rework from Daniel of an existing guide that we had previously. There was a very nice something that started as a blog but eventually ended up as a tutorial from Vasu. Gardener yourself a shoot with Istio custom domains and certificates. I encourage you to take a look. It's one really nice write-up. Next, I wanted also to draw your attention to a few community support features that appeared on the website. So now we have more options and to make it easier to share blogs, for example, and news as well, but particularly blogs. We have both embedded tweet and share and LinkedIn share buttons just below the blog's title. And on the right-hand side of the titles, you can see also a link that you can right-click and copy and share via other means. And that's something that appeared recently. Another feature is that the blog sections of the site were rewritten so that they can also support co-authoring of blog articles. That happened around this co-authored article about the PingCap's experience around implementing TIDB with Gardener, and it's already a fact. Basically, with a little metadata in the front matter, now you can specify explicitly which are the authors, and then can be more than one. Jumping now into how how our website looks in terms of users interest. At a glance, you can see here the chart. I'm not going to deep dive, by the way, in all the charts that you're going to see on the next slides. You will have the slides for reference later. I'll just try to recap the messages and the more important stuff. So you'll notice that we have quite some visitors. That's not to say that these are all people interested in Gardener. I'll explain in a few slides later where this big number comes from. But generally, we have a good around 500 visitors during the weekdays rate, which is quite okay for us. Where do we get our users from? I mean, via what channel? So basically, the huge majority comes from the so-called organic search, which in essence means coming from Google mostly, and also via other search means like other search engines like DuckDuckGo, for example, and others. But that's the majority of the users where they come from. As you will note, that's also the part of users that with which we experience a significant bounce rate. Bounce rate means bouncing means that the user has come to the page but did not actively interact with it or spend sufficient time with it so that we can infer that it was of interest to them. So I can imagine that they were there either by chance or they didn't find what they were looking for. They were looking for something completely different and they drove away from the page. The other channels that we are going to look briefly further are the direct channel, meaning people coming directly on the page, or these are such that we don't have information where they came from. People coming from referral sites, from social networks, and so on. Okay. So first, the direct channel that constitutes some good 10+% of the total users. The bounce rate for these users is a bit above reasonable numbers, but not too bad. Obviously, we can improve there, but it's also not too bad. What we observe is that the best performing pages there for people coming directly to the site are, unsurprisingly, tutorials and blogs mostly. In both, you can see best performing landing pages for these users for your reference later if you look at the slides. Now, people coming from different websites, I mean, the so-called referrals. We have an acquisition of users in the range of about 7+% of all users. What's notable here is that they have a really good bounce rate. With regards to bounce rates, this is something hard to pinpoint with what is exactly the number that you're after, because it depends on a number of things, but basically somewhere between 40 and 60% is quite good. 40% is, you can perceive it as perfect. It's not likely that you fall below 40% anyway. We observed that we have some good traffic from Knative and Istio projects, quite probably due to the Gardener installation manuals we have for them. We have also some stable contribution by SAP web referrals as well. I thought that it would be interesting to take a second look here, just briefly, looking at where those referrals mostly come from. We can see that the major contributor here is github.com and our page, not our page, but our project there, and particularly the Gardener project there. The Gardener repo there, and also Knative, as I mentioned, Istio, and blogs.sap.com. You can see exactly here from where these referrals came from as well. And where do they go? Well, mostly to to the landing page or the API reference, or in this occasion to the installation for Knative. That's not to say that people do not move further. For example, they might have landed on the landing page in attempt to find, let's say, a tutorial or something, but it's kind of hard to grasp everything on a slide to show this. Now, which are our top pages for these referrals? The landing page, obviously, as well as the Knative installation tutorial, the API reference, the architecture, and that kind of stuff. Now, let's proceed to the social channel for acquiring users. That's a humble number of about 1%, but it's also not surprising given that we became active only recently. We're just building up the community there, training to expect news from us, and basically gaining interest. The good news is that the trend is going up. What's interesting is, no, it's not that interesting. It's basically most of our presence is on Twitter, so no surprisingly, that's the most of activity where things happen and where our social acquisitions come from, but also via just a few posts in LinkedIn, which means that we'll need to take a second look at this channel as well. As you see, there are a few top picks here where interest was raised among users. That's the announcement of the website and the announcement of the success story for PingCap. Now, a quick look into Google Search Analytics, meaning how we look from search engines perspective, how people search for us and how do they find us. Well, basically, we have good presence there. Our website URLs appear quite often and quite high. Trouble is that the click-through rate is low. Click-through rate is basically the ratio between clicks and impressions. Impression is the number of times when our website has been seen in a search. So basically people see it, but don't click very much on it. The trouble mostly is the project name. Hence also the high bounce rate from search and so on. The thing is that, especially in spring, people are mostly looking for actual gardeners that are looking for their gardens. I mean, in real physical world and not Kubernetes things and so on. So that really plays a tricks on us in this regard. Anyway, some of the best performing queries yielding best click-through rate are searches for Kubernetes anti-patterns, SSH to Kubernetes node, Gardener Cloud, and several others. And which are the best performing pages? Again, these are mostly tutorials and the API reference. Now, quick look into the social networks because we are a bit ahead of time. I have to rush through this because it's tending to get long, but here's an overview for May. Our top tweet was in terms of impressions, meaning again how many times it was seen on Twitter. It's the news about the website. The top mention for the month was won by Matthias Zon, so big applause to Matthias again around the website. We have some picks around again the news for the website and for the PingCap success story. And so on. Our top follower for the month was somebody that's followed by some nearly 7,000 people. And the top tweets for May, basically the same tweets, but in different order depending on what you're looking for. So by most impressions, the top tweet was about the website by most engagements, meaning impressions that ended up in clicking or doing something with this tweet or looking at the details. That's the PingCap success story. And in terms of best engagement rate, that's the ratio between engagements and impressions. That's the story about ACP announcing its support for fully managed Kubernetes runtime. Now, some trophies for up till now for 2020. Things are looking like this. So the top mention earned some good 249 engagements, meaning that probably you should look at how it looked like, or what was the audience, or the topic if you want to write engaging mentions for Gardener. The top follower for us for this year was followed by nearly 16,000 people. The holder of the most monthly top mentions, I think with 2 so far, is Matthias Zon. So kudos to Matthias for the effort of you know, promoting the project around Twitter. And our top tweet so far was about the website with most impressions. A few others channels. It's our YouTube channel has 93 subscribers, but I don't have too much details about how we look in terms of ups and downs there. And we have to look into LinkedIn, still not there, but you know, with just 2 mentions there, we got almost similar acquisition rate for users as in Twitter. So probably we should look at this and go there as well. Now, with regards to GitHub, and with that I will conclude. I didn't have the time to crunch the data from GitHub, but I actually decided to take a little different approach here and went to OpenHub, previously known as Ohlo. That's kind of summary portal that you can use to browse open source projects in particular and get some insight about them. So that's one way to look to see how are we seen in the open source community out there from outside. So I'll just mark a few things. Also, take all this with a grain of salt. First of all, I think it's owned by IBM or powered by IBM. I haven't looked recently into it. Second of all, the analysis, the indexing is a bit slow, so the data is not entirely up to date. So it's not like a month update, a May month update or something, but in general, how we look there. Anyway, in terms of community, here you can see several of our contributors. Again, kudos to Matthias Zon that have been high ranked in general in open source contributions, and as a contributor also to Gardener. This raises the good impression for the project. In terms of rating and reviews, we stand good, but if you look at the numbers, actually we have only 2 ratings and 0 reviews. So if you're looking for ways how we can promote Gardener there, it's really easy. Just do a few clicks. If you have the time, spend a couple of minutes to write a review. If not, it's just enough to do a rating or just to shout out today, I use this, and that will also help. Top contributors, again, from external perspective and not the latest and greatest data from GitHub. You can see them on the left. Kudos to Rafael, Kristian, Andreas, and all the rest of the guys here in the list. That's a good way to promote us all around. And also I see you getting some sort of a batch rating for contributing to open source in general. So good work, and it pays off for you as well. We see some newest contributors, again, with maybe not the latest data. I see that it says the first commit was some months ago, and for some of these guys, I knew that it was recent. So probably there are some more. That's how it's seen from outside.
Yeah, sometimes you have to open a ticket at OpenHub if the scraping doesn't work.
Yeah, right. With that, I'll conclude. I'm almost on time. And again, if you have some feedback, please come back to me to see how we can tune these things so that it's more helpful. Let me know if it was interesting or not, and so on, so I can proceed in the right direction. Thanks.
Thanks, Georgi. Any questions or comments? Seems not to be the case. Then we can go to the next topic by Kristian.
Let me share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, the logging stack. The agenda for the presentations: first, use cases for the logging stack, architecture, old versus new, what's changed. After that, a quick demo, the migration process, test metrics and alerts, tasks for the next sprint, and questions. Use cases of the logging. use cases for the logging stack. Let's assume that as a user, I would like to check the logs for a pod which is failing. Unfortunately, I find that this pod has been deleted in the past and there is a new one created on its place. So the logs from the old container are lost. And here comes our logging stack, which is created to keep the logs of all pods for 14 days. Other advantages are that there are pretty nice UIs where we can easily search and filter the log messages. In the background, you can see this is the current UI of Grafana. And this is how the export panel looks like there, but I will show you it after a few minutes. Let's continue with the architecture. Now let's remember how our current logging stack looks like. And here we have the following scenario. Fluent bit as a daemon set. So we have 3 nodes here and 3 instances of Fluent bit application. It works as a log collector and push the log message to Fluent application, which works as log aggregator. We use the Fluent dynamic plugin to send the log to the right place, to the right Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch is a stateful set, and it's a stateful set, and we have one Elasticsearch for each shoot control plane and Kibana for UI. If we increase the nodes, we will need additional Fluentd, so Fluentd will be scaled horizontally. And if we add, for example, 3 more shoot clusters, 3 Elasticsearch instances are created, then when the load is increased, let's scale the Fluentd again. So this is how our current logging stack is working. The main problems here are that the Fluentd is a Java application which consumes a lot of resources, and it is difficult to scale it vertically. The Elasticsearch is also a Java application. And the third problem is that we use Kibana as a logging UI, but also we use Grafana as monitoring UI. So when we want to compare the logs and the metrics, we have to manage with 2 different UIs. What we change in the architecture, let's see the new one. We have again Fluentd. As I said, the Fluentd is a C application, so we have no issues with it. And now in the place of Elasticsearch, we have Loki. Yeah, Fluentd works again like logs collector and sends the logs to the right Loki. Loki is a stateful set for each shoot control plane. And after that, we have the UI application with Grafana. And when we create 3 more nodes, for example, let's create 3 more shoot clusters, and that's how our current architecture looks like. Okay, so there are a few differences here. Firstly, you can see that the Fluentd is missing. This is because we have now our custom Fluentd plugin written in Go language, which does the same thing which the Fluentd dynamic plugin, which I have mentioned before, is doing. So now we do not need Fluentd anymore. The second difference is that the Elasticsearch is replaced by Loki. Loki, as I said, is a Golang application created by the Grafana community and consumes far fewer resources than the Elasticsearch. The third difference is that we are reusing the monitoring Grafana, so also we do not need Kibana anymore. And now our metrics and logs will be in one place. And let's show you what we have in the garden. In the garden namespace, you can see my console, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in the Garden namespace, we have one Loki, and we have also Grafana. And let's port forward the garden Grafana and see what we have there. Okay, so here we have two new dashboards, PodWalks and System DWalks. In the PodWalks, we have a filter which is the pod name, for example, Garden Resource Manager, and here we can check the logs from it. And also we have a search field where we can search for a string in the message. For example, let's search for finished, and here I will see only logs which contain this word. Okay, also now the logging in the garden Grafana is enabled, so I can log in there. And also you can see that we have updated the Grafana version to 7.0 because we needed the features when we use the Loki as a data source. And now when I am logging in the Grafana, I can use the Explore menu where I can select here any label which we support. For example, I can select pod name and not Calico, but because Calico doesn't have logs. Gardener, resource again. It will be faster from here. Pod name is gardener. Cube state matrix, for example, but we also don't have logs. But yeah, for example, if I say garden get pods and take the pod name from here, and I will say pod name is this gardener resource manager, I should see the log messages. But yeah, this pod also doesn't have logs for now. But that's how our Grafana looks like. The changes, we have data source defined Loki here. And also, let's see the system DWalks. Here we have unit cloud config downloader, Docker, and kubelet. And that's the new dashboards. Now in the shoot namespace, we have again Loki application, and we have two dashboards, the user dashboards and the operators dashboards. These dashboards come from the monitoring stack, and we just use them. For example, port for the operators dashboard. We have Kubernetes pods, and here we have again search where we can select Garden Resource Manager, for example, and in the bottom we can see the logs, and it is good because we can see the metrics, and in the bottom we can compare the walks. So everything is in one place. Also, again, we can log in this Grafana. And to use the Explore menu. And the last dashboard is users dashboard, is the users Grafana, which we expose to the end users. Here was the difference. We cannot sign here for security reasons, and we have control plane status dashboard, where we can see that there are 3 sections. Kube API server, Kube control manager, and Kube scheduler. And for example, if we open Kube API server section, here we can see the metrics for the API server, and in the bottom we can see also the log messages. The same for Kube control manager and the Kube scheduler. And that's the places we can see the logs now. And as I said, the user's Grafana is locked and we cannot sign in there because we expose it to the end users, and for security reasons, the signing in is locked as before, but we unlock the signing in the operator's Grafana and the Garden's Grafana. Because we would like to use the Explore menu. Okay, let's go back to the presentation and talk about the migration process. There are 2 approaches for the migration. The most important thing we should know is that the current log messages will not be migrated because it will be a difficult procedure, because the Elasticsearch and log store data in different ways, and we do not see much value on migrating it. Also, as we know, the logging stack is still an alpha feature, so the user should not rely on it. So the first approach, this one, and the one we have implemented, is to replace the whole logging stack with the new one. We have created a function which discovers resources from the old logging stack and deletes them. It will be happened during reconciliation. The second approach is we were thinking about is to deploy the new logging stack as a parallel stack of the existing one. The old stack will be marked as deprecated, that will exist 10 more days, for example. And after that, will be deleted. The main reason we do not choose this approach is that we will need a lot of changes after these 10 days when we will remove the auto logging stack. So the switching to the new stack will cost much more efforts and will be much slower. Also, during these 10 days, we will need more resources because one Loki application will be deployed per shoot cluster. And yeah, if you want, we can discuss these 2 approaches on the question slide. Now, let's continue with the test metrics and towards. Now we have a unit test for the FluentBit plugin that we have created, and also one integration test which deploys an application that puts 10,000 logs for a few seconds. And after that, we verify that all of the logs are received by the Loki. Also, there is a metrics endpoint on Loki from which Prometheus scrapes metrics. And with these metrics, we have defined an alert when the Loki is down. Task for the next sprint. what's next. In the next sprint, we will continue with the security part and we will spend more time on it. As you know, we expose a Grafana ingress to the end users. So we have to be sure that everything is happening in the right way, in the secure way. The second thing we will think about is if we are able to move the logging stack as a Gardener extension. Currently, we are not sure how much effort will discuss because now the logging and the monitoring stacks are coupled because they are using the same Grafana, but we will think what can be done there. And yeah, for further questions, you can contact Martin, me, or Vladimir Vasilev. And maybe lastly, let's say where is the logging stack now. So we are almost done with the changes, and now just we are monitoring the Loki behavior, and maybe we'll open a pull request with the changes soon. So yeah, also we will check the security if everything is fine to expose the Grafana to the end users, and yeah, soon will be a pull request. And thanks for the attention. If you have any questions about the changes and the new stack.
One question, Kristian. So that looks really great, the new stack. I was just wondering for what reason you needed the new Fluent Bit plugin. So what did you do there, what was not present in the existing Fluent Bit?
Yeah, because we wanted to remove this FluentD because, as I said, it's a Java application and we cannot scale it vertically. And during the past weeks, we had a lot of issues with FluentD. And we just want
Fluent Bit can, to my knowledge, ingest directly into Loki.
Yeah, it can, but we need a dynamic plugin because the Fluent bit collects the logs from all of the nodes, and it should determine from exactly which control plane is this log
Right.
and into the to the correct Elasticsearch to correct log. So we need dynamic plugin.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, hi Kristian. This is Sayak here. So I had a question regarding the security of the dashboards itself. So currently the security is based on a basic authentication that is put on the ingresses. So what I've been internally working on was converting this basic authentication into OAuth 2 proxy based authentication through the DEX that is already installed. So I am wondering if this is already in the boards or not, because integrating the current DEX itself would be a pretty nice solution instead of using the Grafana's own login screen.
Yeah, I can comment on this one. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so there are some fundamental problems. Is that first, we cannot assume that you're actually only working with DEX. You might have some other identity provider, open identity provider. We currently advertise DEX as an easy way because it's open source, but you can also use, for example, OutZero or some other identity provider. So this is like the first problem, and the second problem is that why we haven't invested so much time into this thing is that you need to dynamically create clients, especially for each seed cluster that you have. So you have to, because you have to in the identity provider such text, you need to register those callbacks URLs. So for example, for every single endpoint that you want, or like every single seed cluster, if you want to do it one per seed cluster, if you want to do the authentication one per seed cluster, then you have to have those callback addresses registered in that identity provider. And this is kind of a problem, and we currently don't have anything.
Okay, so I'll tell you what I've been working on, and I've had partial success in this. So what I've been doing is that I've been using OAuth2 proxy, which sits between whatever service we want to protect and DEX. So for the first point that you raised, that people might have other identity providers, so that can be handled by DEX by using that identity provider as a OIDC source. I mean, we are currently internally using Azure AD. So Azure AD has been added as a connector to DEX. Then what I'm doing is I have a OAuth2 proxy sitting. This OAuth2 proxy is registered as a single client in DEX, and in OAuth2 proxy, I am redirecting all incoming dashboard requests to this single deployment of OAuth2 proxy. And there is a particular pull request that is still pending in OAuth2 proxy site, and that is allowing multiple cookie domains. So I believe that this feature should be available in the very next version. At least that is what the roadmap says. So once this feature also gets released, the idea is that even if you have multiple ingress domains, like we will have ingress domain for a shoot Grafana, we'll have a separate ingress domain for a seed Grafana or the garden Grafana. So what can be done in this case, it seems to me, is that we can add these multiple domains inside OAuth2 proxy itself, and OAuth2 proxy will be registered as a single client index. So this dynamic registration of multiple things in DEX can be mitigated in this way.
Yeah, sure. I would suggest that you, I mean, right now I have an issue open that you mentioned. I think I suggest that you comment on it with your proposal, and we should probably write a Garden extension proposal for this one. Okay.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Kristian.
Hello.
This is Tim. I have another question. So the first one being, I think in Kibana, there's the possibility to have those log messages basically parsed into different fields. Like for the resource manager, this is basically a stream of JSON entries, right? So with controller, for example, this field, so you can distinguish between the actual controller and the health controller. Would that be also possible to achieve such things in the new architecture that you are working on?
Okay, so you why do you need such a feature, let's say, to parse the works in the right way, or?
I think this would be actually helpful for finding the messages you are really looking for. So, for example, if you could filter for severity or any other field that the log basically exposes, you would it would help to do some troubleshooting if you're really scanning through the logs and looking for particular entries.
Mm-hmm. Okay, for a severity, let's say, I will show you what we can do. Again, we have here, for example, components, container name, and let's choose Kube API server. And now I will add a new query, which will be, we have a type where we have a like we should have also severity somewhere. Okay, now I cannot find it, but also here we can see info and there are messages that they are from the QPL API server, and let's choose the error. And here I can say only, I can see only the errors from the API server.
Great. So there is actually this possibility to
Yeah.
add some meaning to the different fields. That's great news. Yeah, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And if I see it correctly, you could go to these details and filter out for some values. Nice. Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
also I see a time range for this and so on.
Yeah.
And Loki also has a query language which is kind of similar to grabbing the logs. So there's also documentation in the Loki project. You can see how you can do such queries. And with that, you could also further filter if you don't have a label for that field you are looking at.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, that would answer my question. Then I have another question. You showed that we now have the possibility to look into the system D logs of the seed cluster. Are you planning on enabling that also for shoot clusters, so we can have a look at the kubelet logs, for example, of a shoot worker node?
No, currently no. I mean, we don't plan on adding anything there, and the main problem is that I mean, yeah. So currently we don't plan on adding anything there.
Yeah, that's
But
maybe part of the, if the user wants it, it has to create his own logging stack.
Okay, yeah, that's one part of why I'm asking, but the other part would be that it would also ease the life of operators. So last week I had some occurrences where I wanted to check the kubelet logs, and I had to go through SSHing in the machine. And if I had the possibility to just look at the logs here in Grafana, just like you showed, I would definitely choose that over SSHing into the machine. This would be actually a great feature for operators.
Yeah.
I mean, the main problem today of adding this is that Loki, like Prometheus and other components, that they don't have any authentication due to them, and then you have to introduce like a proxy in front of them, proxy. So first we have to either use an existing one or then develop it, and this is like one of the problems that we currently face.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. But anyways, I like it very much. So thank you for your work and presentation.
Thank you too.
Hi, Thomas here. I also had now some experience with Loki setting up for our applications, and I actually recently ran into some issues. So we received like 6 to 10 million logs per day. And for us, some Loki queries, which are a little bit more complex, like with using regex queries, take a really long time. And also when I set a lot of labels to make querying easier, basically this also completely shut down our Loki instance. How many logs are you expecting? Have you tested it with like a lot of log entries coming in?
Actually, not. This setup is only on our local shoot clusters. So we are still monitoring it. As I said, we have an integration test which foods with 10,000 logs, and it looks fine for now.
Okay,
I mean,
I'm looking forward into seeing your experience and then maybe comparing our setups. So,
Yeah, sure.
But actually, we also want to have log rotation. So if we receive too big volumes of logs, they will start to be deleted actually.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
but
yes.
if you have 10 million entries per day and you need those entries, what do you do then?
I mean, so today we don't. I mean, we don't run. I mean, the logging stack is only designed for monitoring the components of the shoot cluster, like which we create mainly in the seed today, and many of those are pretty much okay. I mean, they don't spam a lot. So.
Okay, yeah, that's why I asked how much logs you would typically expect, because yeah, of course, when we had less logs, and this also worked really fine and really well, and I was really happy with Loki. We just ran into these issues recently, so I was interested into that. So let's see. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any more questions to Kristian or any other topics?
Short question, Thomas. Did you actually try to scale it out horizontally, or are you running a single node setup?
We are currently running a single node setup. I was looking into scaling it horizontally. There is this Loki ring setup, which looks quite complicated to set up. So I didn't do that yet, but yeah, we are definitely thinking about that. Or actually, we are also trying to test going back to Elasticsearch, because we are also not really happy yet with Grafana's way of showing the logs, especially that there's no pagination in the Explore view. And if you have a query which gives you several thousand logs, this basically crashes your browser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's similar to us. So the default limit of 1,000 that you see also in that shared screen was not enough for us.
Yeah, same for us.
But if you really like go from 5,000 to 10,000, then you really need a fast laptop because your browser is running crazy.
Yeah.
Big tables, yeah.
So yeah, we are still exploring there. But yeah, so far our Loki is also still running. If somebody
on the other side, we were also not very confident with the Kibana way of displaying the logs because it wastes so much space. You cannot customize or change column width and all that stuff. It's also
yeah, definitely. There is no perfect solution, so yeah, I'm also still exploring and maybe running both next to each other and then see also what's happening to Loki. It's still a pretty new product, so I guess there's still some development happening.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks Kristian, thanks Georgi for your presentations and to all the speakers in the discussion. That's it for today. See you next time and have a nice weekend. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.